Okay, Shavua Tov to everyone. I have to say that I'm quite surprised that even the family of the Pidyon have now the ability to learn now, with all the excitement. It's quite amazing. Baruch Hashem. So, Jesse asked me to do something about Pidyon. And it's a very interesting topic because the Pidyon is really, there's so many aspects to it. We have the Bechor of the Pidyon, and then there's the Bikurim, and there's a Pidyon Bechor Behema Teora, not Pidyon, Behema Teora, Pidyon Behema Tme'ah, and we see something surprising about, there's also the Bechor of Eretz Yisrael. There's a Bechor in Eretz Yisrael as well. So we're going to try to see that and how all that works. But the first thing we should mention is that every Bechor in the book of Bereshit is rejected. Is rejected. Okay, I have to say I'm a Bechor. Okay, so that's everything I say negative about a Bechor, then it's every single Bechor is rejected. Okay, we see this in Cain and Hevel. This is well known. Okay, we don't have to elaborate too much. Cain and Hevel. We see this with Esav and Yaakov. We see this in Ishmael and Yitzchak. Reuven, we don't know the brothers. Anytime we have brothers and there's an issue with the Bechor, then he's rejected.
No, but if you don't know who was born first.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah. It's not clear that. It's not clear that. Yeah, but we have two settings of how they're named. Once it's Shem, Ham, Yafet, and it appears also. And then with the sons of Yaakov, Reuven is rejected, okay, and Menashe is rejected. So there's something with the Bechorah that always have to be rejected. So that's a question we have to ask. Why? It seems to be that it should be the opposite. The firstborn is normally the one that will be responsible for the land and then to take responsibility following the father. And then why is he rejected? Okay, because the halakha says that the Bechor receives twice the amount of the Nachala. Why is that? Apparently because he is the one that follows the father. He is the one that takes the main name of the father. So if that is the case, then why is it that some are rejected? Or that most are rejected? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow. It seems to be contradictory. So now let's go to the halakha. Okay, the halakha, but not halakha the way we do the psika, but the way the pesukim are presented. Okay, so let's start reading so we get into the material. So first of all, Pidyon Bechor, because this is the occasion in honor of the Pidyon of Sami Eisel. Hashem Yechayeu V'Yishmereu. והיה כי יביאך אדוני אל ארץ הכנעני כאשר נשבע לך ולאבותיך ונתנה לך ועברת כל פטר רחם לאדוני וכל פטר שגר בהמה אשר יהיה לך זכרים לאדוני. Okay, so we're talking about Peter Rechem of the Behema, the first one, that the Bechor, or the first one that comes out, it's not called the Bechor, is going to belongs to Hashem. What does that mean? It means that you have to bring it as a sacrifice. It's brought as a korban on the Mizbeach. Within the Behema Teme'ah, we have only the Chamor. V'chol Peter Chamor tivde bese. Okay, so the Chamor cannot be sacrificed, because it's Tameh. Still, it's taken, it has some kind of holiness. So you have to do the Pidyon Chamor. Okay, so you do the Pidyon. If you don't want to do the Pidyon Chamor, then you have to slaughter it. Okay, va'araftu. So we have a few questions here. First of all, why only Chamor? Okay, we have many behemot temeot. Why is only the Chamor? Why do we have a Peter? Why do we have this at all? V'chol bechor bevanecha tifdeh. Okay, we have in the same verse Peter Chamor and Bechor Adam. Okay, why in the same verse? Because both of them we have the Pidyon. The Pidyon means, okay, we're talking the Bechor Adam. The Bechor Adam means that if it's not redeemed, it should have really, or it should belong to the Kohen. It should work in the Mikdash. Because that's not possible, because only Kohanim work, this really follows the conception or the time when the Bechorot should have worked in the Mikdash. So they used to take the Bechorot working in the Mikdash. The Bechorot were changed with the Levim. Remember that in the beginning with the Bemidbar? There was some Odafim and all that. We'll not go into the details. But since then, every single Bechor, even though the Bechorot were redeemed and now only the Levim work in the Mikdash, still every single Bechor, because he had the potential of working in the Mikdash, then he must be redeemed. As opposed to the Chamor, that if you don't want to redeem it, you can kill it. Obviously with people that's not possible, so you have to do the Pidyon. Okay, because there's no other way. He cannot work in the Mikdash. He should have, but he cannot. Obviously, he has to stay alive, okay, God forbid otherwise, so there must be the Pidyon. The question is, why do you have to do the Pidyon? Okay, all the Bechorot were redeemed, but changed by the Levim, so why do we need to continue to do the Bechor later generation? Doesn't make sense, okay, because the Levim automatically work in the Mikdash. We would think logically, after the first time all the Bechorot were changed, all the Kedusha was transferred to the Levim, that's it. That's done. Okay, the Bechorot now have no connection to the Mikdash, and the Levim now work in the Mikdash. Why is it that it seems to be that there's some type of potential connection of each Bechor to the Mikdash, and therefore you have to redeem it because he cannot work there anymore? So why does it continue so many generations afterwards? And then you have to read the Kohen in order to redeem the Bechor. So that's a question the main question that we want to ask here. Let's continue. ופדויו מבין חודש בערכך תפדה כסף 5 שקלים בשקל הקודש 20 גרה הוא אך בכור שור או בכור כסף או בכור עז לא תפדה קודש הם. Can we redeem now the בהמה טהורה? We cannot. Okay, because here we have the option of bringing it as a sacrifice to the Mizbeach, so they cannot be redeemed at all. What is the issue with the Bechor? Why is it necessary, and how is it compatible with the fact that all the Bechorot are rejected? Are these two separate issues? I think most interpreters, most scholars will say it's two separate things. The Bechor rejected is one thing, and then the Bechor that has some type of holiness is another thing. They're not connected. What I want to show you, that really it's one. It's one single thing. On the one hand, the Bechor is rejected. For the same reason, he's redeemed, or sacrificed, or worked in the Mikdash once, or we'll see what happens with Eretz Yisrael in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about this new Bechor of Eretz Yisrael. You don't have it on the sheet. I forgot to bring it, or I didn't plan to talk about it. I thought we were doing this as a Dvar Torah on the Pidyon. So I planned it shorter and with less material, so I wasn't aware. But let's talk about Yericho. Yericho is really a Bechor. How do I know? Because Yoshua says in chapter 6, ורק אתם שמרו מן החרם פן תחרימו לקחתם מן החרם ושמתם את מחנה ישראל לחרם ואחרתם אותו. And then it says at the end of the parasha, וישבע יהושע בעת ההיא לאמור ארור האיש לפני אדוני אשר יקום ובנה את העיר הזאת את יריחו בבחורו ייסדנו וצירו יציב דלתיה. So Yericho was ruined and it's forbidden to rebuild it. And the question is why? Okay, so some say that the cherem was a command initiated by Hashem to Yoshua. When it says here that it should be cherem, that God initiated it. That's the Radak, he says that. But if you look carefully at the Pesukim, it doesn't say that. Excuse me?
Achim says that.
The cherem?
That it was just as God said.
No, it says that that they were killed.
When they build it, in times of Ahav, it attributes it to violating God's command.
Yes, okay. So I'll explain that now, how that works. This is exactly the issue of the cherem. So the cherem is, every person can take anything that he wants and make it as a cherem. Okay, if this belonged to me, I can say this is a cherem, and now this is holy. It becomes holy, and then it has to go to the mikdash. In principle, you can also do a cherem on a person, on people. It's a bit difficult it's done on things, on animals. You can make thing a cherem. And this was initiated by Yoshua, the first conquest. Yericho, he puts it as a cherem, as written in the book of Vayikra, the end of the book of Vayikra. Why does he do that? It seems that he follows here the concept of the Bechor. Every single Bechor is something that you cannot use unless you redeem it. Okay, if you don't redeem it, you have to, if it's a donkey, then you get rid of it. Or you have to redeem it, or you sacrifice it. But you cannot use it unless it's redeemed. What Yoshua does here, he takes the first city and he says, this is a cherem. And because it's a first, it seems that it acts as if it's a bechor, the first of the conquest. And this is really the only city. Then we have only Ai, because Yericho wasn't done properly, so there needs a supplement. It's supplemented by the Ai. So the question is, why also do we need a city to act as a bechor? The answer to all this is in the story of the Bikurim, the halacha of Bikurim, in Devarim chapter 26, and the answer is given quite straightforward. So let's read at least part of it. First of all, the halacha and then the explanation. והיה כי תבוא אל הארץ, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך נחלה, וירשתה וישבת בה, ולקחת מראשית כל פרי האדמה אשר תביא מארצך, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, ושמת בתנה, והלכת אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך לשכן שמו שם. ובאת אל הכהן אשר יהיה בימים ההם, ואמרת אליו, הגדתי היום לאדוני אלוהיך, כי באתי אל הארץ, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותינו לתת לנו. ולקח הכהן התנה מידיך. We don't have to translate, right? This is fine. Let's read the end. Verse 10, ועתה הנה הבאתי את ראשית פרי האדמה אשר נתת לי אדוני, והנחתו לפני אדוני אלוהיך, והשתחווית לפני אדוני אלוהיך, ושמחת בכל הטוב אשר נתן לך אדוני אלוהיך לבתיך, אתה והלוי והגר אשר בקרבך. Okay, so listen what it says here. He takes the first of the fruit, ועתה הנה הבאתי את ראשית פרי האדמה אשר נתת לי אדוני. verse 9 earlier. ויוציאנו אדוני ממצרים, 8. ויוציאנו אדוני ממצרים ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה גדול ואותות ומופתים, ויביאנו אל המקום הזה, ויתן לנו את הארץ הזאת, ארץ זבת חלב ודבש, ועתה הנה הבאתי את ראשית פרי האדמה אשר נתת לי אדוני. The problem with the first fruit is that when someone works in the land and he gets the first fruit, that he's happy about the fruit, and he thinks that it's his work. Kochi ve'otzem yadi. So we go back to Sefer Devarim, to chapter 8. You read it afterwards, we'll save the time. The minute that someone prospers, okay, and his work succeeds, and he gets what he worked for so long, then the problem is the problem of pride, of ga'ava. Kochi ve'otzem yadi. The danger occurs especially with the first. Why? Because the first, the expectation is the highest. Okay, most of us are parents here. We all love all our children equally, but there's a difference between the first one that is born and the second and the third, etc. Right? There's a difference. A difference not I must correct myself because I don't want to cause any problems to anyone. It's not that the firstborn is loved more or the parents are happier about them. It's new. It's new. It's the first time. Everything is exciting. It's the excitement is different. Everything new that we acquire, the new stage is the most exciting. Even with simple things like you buy a phone, you buy a piece of furniture, you buy something, that lasts only for a few minutes. It doesn't matter. Real things last for longer. But the excitement for the first is the highest. And then the danger of pride is also the highest. Because when one produces, I'm sorry for this word, a child, okay, this is astonishing. You just come, you're a person, and suddenly you are able to produce someone new. And then you feel, it's me. I'm doing it. By myself. Okay, with my wife, obviously. Okay, and my wife. We're doing it together. This is ours. And then the pride is the highest. And there's so much put into the next generation. It says about the sarisim. Tov mibanim u'banot. How's the beginning? V'natati lahem yad vashem tov mibanim u'mibanot. The sarisim are those that cannot give birth, okay, because they were, how do you say this in English? That they were castrated. They're not able to give birth, to reproduce. So God promises them, those are the the Jews that came back from Israel, that talks at Yeshayahu, and they were taken to the palace of the king to work there. So what the king did, he wanted to prevent them to play around with his wives and whatever, so he used to do them the serus. They came back to the land, they're not able to give children. And now, they're unfortunate, right? So Hashem says, I will give them Yad Vashem Tov Mibanim U'Banot. I will give them a name better than children. But what that means is that everyone is seeking the continuation of the name. So everyone sees in his children the possibility of preserving the name forever. This goes back. Excuse me? Lakim Shem B'Yisrael. But this goes back to the story of Adam and Chava, where apparently Adam and Chava should have lived forever. Eventually they die. That's the punishment, that they will not live forever. Since then, every human wants to live forever. We can't, but that's what we want. That's what we want. We want to live. The most basic instinct that we have is to live. Okay? And whenever we get older, we feel it, and we don't feel good about it, because we want to live forever. The comfort we have is the children. And that gives us a name. And here God intervenes and says, just a minute, it's not your name. The Bechor, the one that you give the most, you invest the most, so you feel the most, you have the most happiness, the most happy birth that you had, that's the firstborn, that's mine. It's not yours. And that is in order to take away the feeling of pride. When you do the Pidyon Bechor, you are saying, it's not mine. It belongs to God. And this is fascinating. This is fascinating because now we understand the whole thing. The first fruits, it's again the same thing. Everyone can think about your own business. Try to go back to the first transaction you did, the first buying, the first selling you did. How exciting was that? And then the first time you do that, you say, okay, it doesn't belong to you. You bring it to the Mizbeach. This is unfortunate because everyone was in agriculture in the past. You have the first fruit, you go to Jerusalem. You can eat it. Lifnei Hashem. Before Hashem. V'sammachta lifnei Hashem Elokecha. You have to be happy. It's okay to be happy. Lifnei Hashem Elokecha. It's not yours. What happens today is really a problem because we don't do bikurim. We're not agricultures. Okay, we work in other businesses. What we should have done is taking our every year, the first production, the first selling, the first book I write every year, I should say, this is bikurim. This is Hashem. It's not me. That's what we should do. We're privileged to have the Pidyon and then we remember this, but it happens not too frequent. That's a problem. We have a Pidyon Bechor once in a lifetime. Bikurim, never. Pidyon Bechor Bema, never. Peter Chamor, did anyone do? Never. That's it. It's all lost. We have a whole set of mitzvot that means to educate us, to bring us to a certain understanding of the relationship between us and Hashem, and we cannot practice them. That's a problem. It's really a problem. It's the same with Netilat Lulav. It's the same thing. Netilat Lulav has a similar idea. You take the fruit, Chag Asif, the beginning, the first one that comes out, and then you do the Simcha before Hashem. But who produces in the land? We don't do that. We do other things. But that's not connected to the whole relationship that we have with Hashem. And this is the major problem. We have the mitzvot, the Orach Chaim. We were talking about Orach Chaim earlier. We have the Orach Chaim, and we have our works, and there's no connection. There's absolutely no connection. If we're pious, if we're diligent, if we're Hasidim, we're able to take the work and then we give the Maaser, and we do Maaser Ksafim. We do different things. But it's not a requirement of everything we do. That's the problem. But this is the meaning of the Bechor. Now let's go to Eretz Yisrael. This is what happens here. The most dangerous thing about the conquest of the land is what we saw in Devarim Perek Chet. Kochi ve'otzem yadi asa li tachayil hazeh. You conquer the land and then you think it's we that have done it. And this is what happens in the story of Yericho. Yoshua thinks he's going to conquer the land. So he does the me'asef, and he does the chalutz, he puts them in front of the machaneh. God did not command him to do that. Yeshua is attempting to do as much as human things as possible in the story of Yericho. Eventually, excuse me? Yeah. And eventually, the Chomah falls in a miracle. It's Hashem. Once Yeshua understands this, the first thing he does, and you have to see when he does that. A minute before he says to the people, go and conquer the land, then he announces the cherem. So beforehand, try to think what happens. They were thinking what God promised, that they're coming to houses mele'im kol tuv, right? That was the promise. That's what they're waiting for 40 years. That they will come to the land, conquer it, and they will gain Eretz Zavat Chalab Udvash, all the houses of the Canaanites that were full of silver and gold. Mele'im kol tuv. And then Yoshua comes, the last minute, the seventh circle around Jericho, and says to the people, it's cherem. You're not allowed to take anything. Even the city itself, we're going to settle the land, to conquer it and settle in it. Yericho, we're not allowed to do so. Again, this is the concept of the Bechor. Saying, yes, Hashem promised us Kol Tuv, He promised us the cities, the land, but the first one we're dedicating to God. Not because some understand that Yericho is it's tameh or there's something wrong with it. It's exactly the opposite. Because it's the first, because it has a special relation to us as the Jewish people, because of that, we sanctify it and we say we cannot use it. It's kadosh. If you cannot bring it on the mizbeach, then you can't use it. But the kedusha does not permit it to be used. That's Yericho. It always happens, by the way, this thing, something that is not permitted for us, we tend then to take it as something tameh or wrong for us. I'll give you an example. Basar be'ema teme'ah. Okay? That is tameh, obviously. You're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed also to eat blood. Or chelev. Why not? It's exactly the opposite. It's because the nefesh is there, because it goes on the mizbeach, therefore we're not allowed to eat it. So we have two separate reasons why we're not allowed to eat something. One of them because it's too low, too far, too tameh, and therefore we're not going to metameh our lives, and we're not going to eat the chuldot and all the animals that are written there. On the other side, we have something that's too holy for us to eat. When Yechezkel talks about it, he puts them all together. Halachically, if you read the Shulchan Aruch, there's no difference whatsoever between eating blood and between eating basar be'emat me'ah. No difference. And that is our attitude towards it. If you know that a chicken is not kosher, you distinct yourself from it, right? If you know that you have something with blood, what you do, you distinct yourself from it. But halachically, it's exactly the opposite. We should have something to say, aspire to, but this is something we should have loved to have. But we can't because it's kadosh. It's exactly the opposite. And same with Yericho. Yericho is a place that we should have wanted the most, because it's the first. The first we give to Hashem. That is why the first is also rejected in Bereshit. For exactly the same reason. The first, because we have the greatest passion about the first, and because there's the greatest danger with the first, that we will feel that it's us, kochi v'otzem yadi, therefore he is rejected. So look, we have different things that they all have the same ending, it works differently. One of them is killed, the Bechor Chamor. Others are sacrificed, belongs to Hashem. Others are eaten by the Be'alim, but in Yerushalayim, in Bet HaMikdash. Another is redeemed. The common ground is that we cannot use them. It's not ours unless we do something about it, like Pidyon, or the Mizbeach, or we do it in Jerusalem, or the other solution, we get rid of it. Like Yericho, or like the Peter Chamor. But they all have the same idea. The first is the one that gives us pride. Because it gives us pride, Hashem wants to educate us to believe in Him, and therefore we give the first to Hashem. There we can see the difference in attitude. Why the Chamor? Because the Chamor is the main animal that was used domestically. There was no other animal that was used. We think it's only a Chamor, but they had no dogs. Dogs was never a pet, and the dog was always a kind of the cat treats of today. That was the dog in ancient times. Okay, so that was never used at home. Other animals were not used. The horse was not introduced, yes, and not even the camel. So the only thing that they used was the Chamor. So the Chamor really was the only, and the Chamor was something that they were dependent on, and they had a special relationship. It's like men with their cars. Okay, that's the Chamor. Okay, that's more or less, if you want to understand what the Chamor is. The Chamor, okay, you get a new Chamor, you change it, you get a BMW, a Mercedes Chamor. It's always a Chamor, and that's something unique. That's something unique that you have. If you look at this, at the book of let's start with Bereshit. Okay, Hem v'Chamorhem. It's how many times it's written there in the story of Yosef? There's a reason for that, because they take pride in the Chamor. The Chamor is transportation, gives you speed, gives you ability, mobility, gives you the parnasah, because that's the way you can sell merchandise. You put everything in the Chamor, he carries a lot. And in the book of Shoftim, you have how many children they have and how many Chamorim they have. Remember the Shoftim there? You have 40 Chamorim, 30 Chamorim with Ivtzan and others. Why? Because the Chamor is the most important animal domestically. And therefore, you have a new Chamor, that's something you're expecting. It's like you're getting a new car. Okay, so the new car, Peter Rechem. Imagine that. You get a new car, and then you get rid of it. It's amazing, right? It's amazing. Why? Because we want to be educated, we need to be educated that nothing belongs to us. It all comes from God. The whole issue now is, how do we transmit this idea in the modern world to our life? Not having a Chamor, not having a Bikurim, not having a Yericho. How do we transmit this idea to our personal lives? That's the greatest secret. Everyone has to deal with it. We don't have a set of Chamor. How do we have a set of Chamor? We're not going to buy a new car and get rid of it. Okay, I know that. So, find solutions. We have to find solutions. How do we educate ourselves that we have this wealth, we prosper, still we understand that everything is from God. Kol me'et Hashem. Hashem noten lanu koach la'asot chai. It's good that we have the power, the chayil, but we must understand Hashem gives us the power. That's Pidyon B'chol. That's what we're doing tonight.